What's happening, guys? My name is Anthony, and in today's video I'm going to be helping you guys learn how to easily gain time around Paul Ricard. So if you're new to this channel and you don't know how I handle the track guides here, what I tend to do is go around the lap slowly, giving you guys all the details you would need to know in order to be quick around the circuit, and then I will show you one of my hot laps so that you can see how I go about tackling any given circuit. So whether you have my team, a league race coming up, or you do the weekly event, this is the place to be in order to learn track. So the last thing I have to say in this intro is if you do end up gaining time from this track guide, make sure to let me know how much time you actually gain thanks to it in the comment section down below. And without further ado, let's get into Paul Ricard track guide. And I'd like to thank everybody who's on the screen right now for being channel members. If you do want to support the content past just liking and subscribing, make sure to click the join button underneath the video to learn more. Okay then guys, so coming up to the final corner, just like you would at most tracks, you want to set yourself up at the beginning of quali. So you want to go wide and then get your foot on the throttle as soon as you can, because this is going to allow you to take as much speed down into turn one as possible. So open up DRS, and the first corners, I should say, because it is a kind of like a chicane, you're going to be starting on the left hand side. So you want to move the car to the right hand side since it's a left turn. And then for this corner, you want to brake right around about here. Usually this is where I tend to brake. You can brake a little bit later if you're more confident on brakes, but I tend to brake around about here, which looks to roughly be about 70 meters or something like that. You're going to be in 8th gear coming into the corner. You want to turn just before the 50 meter board. You kind of want to turn early into this corner, I believe, down into 5th gear. And you can take a lot more of this curb to the point where you actually knock over this little bollard, but ideally you want to miss it, because that bollard can actually make you lose a little bit of time if it gets in the wrong place in front of the car and stuff like that. So 5th gear, and then you don't want to go too far left because you're going to lose time and you're not going to gain it on the exit up until the next corner. So you want to keep the car around about the middle of the track here. Now in this year's game, the car is a lot more twitchy on the exit of this corner. So what I tend to do is you still need to take the same line. You still need to go over this curb as much as possible. However, I tend to lift off a little bit as I'm coming up to the curb. And then as I'm exiting from the curb, that's when I put my foot down and try and get on the power as quickly as possible. The earlier, the better, of course. And then if you need to, use as much of the track as you possibly can. This next corner is going to be in 7th gear. Now you want to take as much entry as you need to really for this corner, because you're going to be carrying a lot of speed into the next couple of corners. I'll explain it a little bit more as we get into it. So 7th gear, you want to brake just as you're getting into the 50 meter board. So I want to say roughly about 55, maybe 60 meters towards the corner. Then you want to downshift into 5th gear, carry the speed into this corner. You want to ride over this curbing here at the apex. As you can see from the hot lap that I did, pretty much nanometers away from invalidating. That's pretty much what you want to do. Now for this corner, I noticed during the session of me getting the hot lap that you're seeing in the video, I tend to actually dab on the throttle a little bit going into this corner, and you don't want to do that. If you're doing that, it means you broke too late in the previous corner, because you can actually still carry all that speed from the previous corner into this corner. So you want to brake as late as possible so you don't have to dab on the throttle, because if you dab on the throttle, that does unsettle the car, because the car thinks it's starting to go straight, and that means you're going to understeer for this next corner. So you want to just leave the throttle going into this one. You downshift into 4th gear, then you just pretty much come off the brakes right over this curb and just let the car sort of turn and just do its thing throughout this corner here. Now for this one, sorry about that guys, needed to cough. So coming into this corner now, what I tend to do is I don't put the car in the middle of the track, because the way that these next sequence of corners go, you do want to be as wide as possible going into this particular corner. So I keep the car kind of towards the middle, but more say to the left. You want to keep the car in 4th gear. Now if you're on mediums or hards in the middle of the race, you've got the full race fuel, then you probably want to go down into 3rd gear. But for qualifying, you've got less fuel, you can carry more speed as you're on the softs. 4th gear into this corner, and then there's two ways you could take it. You could either, you know, hit the curbing here, or you could just ride over it. But again, I tend to try and miss the bollards there, just because if they get in front of the car, you can lose a little bit of time. So yeah, 4th gear, and then you pretty much want to place your car like this coming out of the corner. The bumpiest part of the curbing is the right hand side of the curbing, so it kind of helps if the tires aren't on that part. You can still bottom out, I believe, but to be honest, during my session I never really did, so I usually just take that line. And then for this next corner now, I usually try and ride over this curb. You don't have to, but I usually do. Upshift into 5th gear, and then what you want to do is you want to bring the car as wide left as possible, because you want to be as straight as possible so that you can start to get on the throttle and get out of that traction limited phase. So instead of turning and having to keep, you know, off the throttle a little bit, bring the car out right, and that allows you to pretty much get to the point where you're flat earlier. And then you want to bring the car not towards the middle really, but just, you know, round about here is good enough. And then you want to take this curbing here. Boom, use all the track if you need to. And then open up DRS. This next corner is going to be a chicane, so you do want to place yourself on the right hand side of the track. One of the longest straights on the track, of course. I'm coming up to this corner now. I kind of brake a little bit earlier than I used to. On F1 2021, I would pretty much brake where the blue curbing starts just in front of us there. But for this one, I don't know if maybe it's the setup just has not as much downforce or whatever. It's obviously a time trial one, but I brake a little bit earlier, so I roughly brake around about here, maybe a little bit earlier than this, and then I brake down into 4th gear once again, braking on the curbing, which is okay for this corner. Down into 4th gear, then you want to ride over this curb, try not to hit the bollard once again, and then downshift into 3rd gear if needed, and just ride over this curbing here with the right hand side of your car, and then try and get your foot on the throttle as much as you can. 4th gear. This corner is very tricky in this year's game to really just put your foot on the throttle. I know that in last year's game, you could pretty much be flat by this point, but I've noticed that whenever you're flat, you tend to get a lot of wheel spin, the car unsettles, and then you go spinning. So try and be careful with this corner. It's very tricky. You do have to build up muscle memory on how much of the throttle you can actually apply before you start to spin. And here we come to the actual title and thumbnail of this video. You're probably wondering when you clicked on this video, wait, there's a bump that cost you a 10th? Yes, and it's actually during this part of the track. Now, I don't know specifically where the bump is, but you will notice at this portion of the hot lap, when I'm going through, I just suddenly gain a 10th before I hit the corner of the flat out right-hander coming up. And that's because there's a bump around about this part of the track that for some reason the car just bottom mounts on and you end up losing time. So the best way to avoid it, I've noticed, is to keep the car as far left as you possibly can without invalidating. So pretty much keep the right hand side of the tires just over the white line, and then you seem to miss that bump or whatever. The car doesn't bottom out and you actually gain time. Once again, in my hot lap, you'll notice that once I pass that bump or whatever, I just suddenly gain like a 10th of a second going from that bump all the way until I reach the curbing right here. You'll see I gain about a 10th. It's crazy. I didn't even know that was a thing until someone on Twitter mentioned it, and then I noticed it in my hot lap. Pretty crazy. I didn't know that was a thing, but either way, once you come out of that corner, next corner is a long right-hander, so you want to stay as far left as possible. And since it's a very long right-hander, you can actually brake super late. You pretty much want to disregard the meter boards here and just continue driving. At this point, you're still flat, and then right around about here is where you want to start braking. You want to slowly downshift throughout the corner into 5th gear and bring the car out wide. As I said, it's a long right-hander, so you want to take a double apex approach for this one. Bring the car out wide and then get your foot on the throttle as early as possible. It's quite difficult to see the exit curbing, so you want to try and just put in as much laps as you can so that you can memorize where the curbing is, because it's so easy to go out wide if you get on the throttle too early. So practice and you'll be able to sort of build up a memory of where you need to get on the throttle. You do want to hit that curbing there, and then once again this curbing, it comes at you so quickly, and when you're in the middle of the corner getting on the throttle, you can't even see this curbing, so it's sort of very difficult to judge when you should and shouldn't, but that will come with practice. Now for this next corner, it is a long left-hander, however you don't take it like you did the previous corner. You're going to be in 6th gear and you want to take a very late apex to this corner. So you want to stay out wide on the right hand side here, even up to around about here. You still want to be wide, and then you'll be downshifting into 4th gear, and then you want to have a big turn in to this apex here. Boom, hit it right around about here. You don't want to go on the curb or else you're going to lose too much time. You want to just hit the white line and get your foot on the throttle. Use as much of the track as you need to if you want to. You don't have to, but if you've played the previous games, you know that that's pretty much the line, so that's what I tend to do. You're going to be in 7th gear coming up to this next left-hander. Now, as you can see, the blue and white curbing here, or paint strips, I should say, not curbing, it goes to the right and then sort of starts turning to the left. Right around about there, so just before the 50-meter board, that's when you want to brake and start turning in. Downshift into 4th gear. Be as tight as possible to this curb as you can. You can ride over this last part of the curb if you need to. And then in quali, once again for this final corner, you want to be in 4th gear going into this corner, and you don't want to downshift into anything. That's just the way it is. That's just what gear you need to use. During the race, when you have more fuel and you have different compounds, you probably might need to downshift into third, but for qualifying, you want to be in fourth here. Get the car in, boom, hit the apex, get your foot on the throttle as quickly as you can, make up that time, open up DRS, and that is pretty much a lap around Paul Ricard. So what I'm going to do is now show you guys the hot lap that I got in full time so you can see how I personally tackle the circuit, and then it's up to you guys to go and practice.
So that last lap was a 1:29.5.
Okay guys, so that is how you tackle Paul Ricard on F122. As I said in the beginning of the video, make sure to let me know how much time you were able to gain thanks to this track guide. Make sure to click any of the videos that you'll see on the screen right about now. Like and subscribe for more track guides like this, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.